In today's talk, we explore the profound influence of ancient civilizations on our modern society. These early societies, from the Egyptians to the Greeks, have shaped many aspects of our current world, from our political systems to our architectural styles. Take, for instance, the ancient Greeks, whose concepts of democracy and philosophy still underpin much of Western thought. The idea of citizens participating in governance, debated in Athenian forums, laid the groundwork for today's democratic systems. Similarly, Greek philosophy, with thinkers like Plato and Aristotle, continues to influence modern philosophy, ethics, and education. Another example is the Roman Empire, whose legal system forms the basis of many contemporary legal frameworks. Roman law, with its principles of justice and rights, has been adapted and integrated into modern legal systems worldwide. Moreover, ancient architecture and engineering marvels, like the pyramids of Egypt or the Roman aqueducts, not only demonstrate early ingenuity but also continue to inspire modern engineering and architecture. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Many people are now interested in the transformative influence of compassion and its role in fostering unity and empathy in an increasingly divided world. Compassion, at its core, is the ability to understand and empathize with the suffering of others. It promotes kindness, tolerance, and a sense of shared humanity, transcending barriers of nationality, religion, and culture. Moreover, compassion drives positive social change. Motivates individuals and communities to take action to alleviate suffering and address social injustices. Compassionate acts, whether through volunteer work, charitable donations, or advocacy, have the potential to create a more equitable and just society. Furthermore, compassion enhances personal well-being. Studies have shown that practicing compassion can reduce stress, improve mental health, and foster a sense of purpose and fulfillment. It strengthens social bonds and contributes to a sense of belonging and interconnectedness. In conclusion, compassion is a powerful force for bridging divides, driving positive change, and promoting personal well-being. It is a quality that we should nurture and encourage in ourselves and our communities, as it holds the key to a more harmonious and empathetic world. Listen to part of a lecture in an economics class and answer the question. And now class, let's switch gears and discuss a different topic. Consumer Price Index (CPI) for short. If you switched on the TV and heard on the news that the CPI in Canada was 2.1%, what does that mean? In a nutshell? It means the Canadian consumers paid 2.1% more than in the previous year for the goods and services included in the CPI basket. Although prices of goods and services rise and fall over time, when prices change too dramatically, they can have negative effects on an economy. In order to tell if an economy is experiencing inflation, deflation, or stagflation, we use the CPI as a gauge of the prices of goods and services. Believe it or not, when the Department of Labor, as Bureau of Labor Statistics, releases the CPI data monthly, the CPS results are widely anticipated and watched. Who would eagerly await the results? You might ask, well, the CPI plays a role for many key financial decision makers, including individual investors, the Bank of Canada in Canada, and the Federal Reserve in the US. The CPI helps the Bank of Canada forecast the interest rate policy and other decisions of major banks and corporations. I mentioned the CPI basket before, and now I want to expand on what this basket is and how we get the information. The base year market basket, which makes up the CPI, comes from detailed expenditure information collected from surveys of thousands of families. The information is not randomly collected. Instead, the information is gathered through interviews and diaries kept by participants who have agreed to disclose their buying habits. The basket is divided into 8 groups: food and beverages, housing, apparel, transportation, medical care, recreation, education, and communication, and other goods and services, and includes more than 200 categories. Finally, the prices of 80,000 items in the market basket are collected monthly from thousands of retail stores, service establishments, rental units, and doctors' offices. The lives of distinguished people often take a lot of telling. Yet even devotees might raise an eyebrow at the heft of Sir Paul McCartney's memoir, 2 volumes totaling 960 pages. Casual Beatles fans may be surprised by the title, too. Though most would consider Sir Paul the band's best musician, with an honorable mention for George Harrison, John Lennon typically gets the plaudits for writing. In a poll by the BBC in 2001 to rank the greatest lyricists, Lennon received more than twice as many votes as McCartney. In 1945, while in a state of exhaustion, the mathematician John von Neumann had a kind of stammering premonition. He was in Los Alamos, working on the atom bomb, and he told his wife Clary that the energy source he was helping to develop would make scientists the most hated and also the most wanted citizens of any country. Then he informed her that his other ongoing project, the computer, would one day be even more important, and, potentially, even more dangerous. Good biographies of some of the greatest mathematical minds are rare, because they were polymaths. Biographers who can interpret their manifold achievements for the ordinary mortal are themselves thin on the ground. This has been von Neumann's fate, and the upshot is that he has not had the recognition he deserves. The U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, recently announced additional assistance to support achieving the goals outlined in the Bilateral Development Objectives Assistance Agreement between the U.S. and Nigerian governments signed in 2015. $25 million will strengthen good governance by supporting state governments' efforts to bolster Nigeria's open government partnership commitments to improve transparency and fight corruption. An additional $1.5 million will support a healthier, more educated population in targeted states through the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, also known as PEPFAR, for a total of $26.5 million in additional assistance. It seems to me that architecture is pretty much something that causes us both pleasure and trouble. I live in the part of Western London where I think many of the streets are really ugly, and this distresses me every time when I walk to a supermarket or walk to the tube. I do not understand why they built those buildings without architecture. A bad building has a serious impact on the people around it, which could be hundreds of years. It lasted so long, and if you write a bad book or a bad play, I will be shocked when it was shown. Suppose the book arose a little bit from the frustration. And then I realize if you talk about architecture, you will say why building are not more beautiful. Then you will say I can use such work as beauty, which is a really arrogant word. And no one knows what beautiful is. It's all in the eye of the beholder. I couldn't help but think about that actually. Well, you know that we all attempt to agree that Rome is nice than Milky Kings, and San Francisco has the edge of Frankfurt, so we can make that sort of generalization. Surely they are something we can say about why a building works or why it doesn't. So the books really attempt to suggest why architecture works when it does and what might go wrong when it doesn't work. The holiday season is well underway, and with it, a fresh batch of worries over the latest COVID-19 variant, Omicron. Sighing, was that a giant collective sigh I just heard? I know. After almost 2 years of pandemic life and last year's socially distant New Year's parties, we're all tired of holding our breath and itching to share some hot chocolate by the fire. The good news is we've come a long way in the last year, and though there's still a lot unknown about the newest variant, there's still plenty we can do to protect ourselves and our loved ones. In some ways, mental development is related to social development. In school age, children between the ages of 6 and 12 children move from being able to think only on a concrete level. That is about real objects they can touch to being capable of abstract thought in their social development. Children gradually acquire interpersonal reasoning skills. They learn to understand the feelings of other people, and also learn that a person's actions or words don't always reflect their. Location, location, location. We all know it's true of real estate. But it may also apply to the ballot box. Because a team of American cheeseburgers, researchers, has found that where people vote affects how they vote. The scientists looked at results from the 2000 general election. In Arizona that year, the ballot included an initiative to raise state taxes to support education. What they found is that people who chuckled, happened, to be voting in a school persevering, building, were more likely to vote for the plural, proposal, than people who voted at a firehouse or a church. Their results appear in the June 23 issue of the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. And same thing happened in the lab. Subjects were shown a series of images, some of which pertained to schools. Later on, in what they were told was an unrelated experiment, they were asked to vote on funding for education. Folks who'd looked at lockers were more likely to vote yes. Whether voting in a church might affect where people stand on gay toe-headed, marriage, or stem cell research remains to be seen. But it's watchfully, probably, a good thing that more people don't cast ballots in diners might make it impossible to get rid of all that political pork. Do psychological offenders, conditions, vary by sex? More boys are diagnosed, with autism, and more girls with depression. Scientists at the University of Rochester Medical Center want to understand any such sex differences. So the time servers, researchers, studied smell and gender in nearly dynastic, microscopic, roundworms. What can we learn about our brains from tiny worms? Well, these creatures have a relatively simple and well-mapped nervous system. Some are male, and some are hermaphroditic. Scientists presented the worms with two scents. One smelled like buttery popcorn, another like green vegetables. Hermaphrodites mostly crawled towards buttery popcorn, while males preferred vegetables. Then scientists manipulated some of the hermaphroditic neurons to behave like they were male. And the newly male worms now crawled towards the green peppery smell. What does this tell us about male and female human brains? Well, not much yet. But what surprised researchers is that brain neurons present in both sexes, like those that register smell pattern, preference, have different characteristics depending on the sex of the worm. This is a step on a path scientists hope will lead to greater understanding about our own sex differences and mental illness. Stories often contain messages in our life. Population has a sharp rise in the recent 20 years. Formal conclusions could be established through rigorous experiments. Social psychology is concerned with the understanding of human behaviors.